and happy Wednesday to the world up there. Happy New Year's. Happy New Year's, Hawkscast. How's it going, gentlemen?
Hey, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Get this crap behind us and get on to the next crap.
Dude, I can't even believe that this crappy crap hole of a year is almost over, but there's still so much to talk about with the Seahawks.
Yeah, well, we got some good news there, didn't we?
I am very happy with where we're standing right now in regards to the Seahawks, the playoffs, health. I mean, knock on all the wood, but things are looking up, I feel.
Yeah.
I mean, I think all of us were very, cautiously optimistic going into that Rams game, but I was almost speechless at how well they played. Obviously, the Rams are a good defense, so you have to give them credit. They did a lot to stifle the Seahawks, but in the second half, they did more than enough. The Seahawks just everywhere did more than enough, and they were just very comfortable in that game.
That defense, I don't know what happened, but that's the defense that you want to see going into the playoffs. I mean, that we want to see, not that the other teams want to see. They don't want to see this defense. I
mean, we joke about it all the time. What are the second half adjustments they're going to make? I thought we were just going to get 6-7 yarded to death, all over the place. Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, Reynolds. They were just going to get 7 yard, 11 yards, 9 yards every single play. And it kind of looked like that was going to happen in the first half. But in the second half, Cooper Kupp disappeared. He caught COVID. He's done for a little bit of time. I don't remember Robert Woods' number getting called almost at all in the second half. And their third wide receiver, Reynolds, had probably one of the worst football plays I've seen in quite some time. I mean, he did give himself up, but I mean,
I think we got hosed on that one. You give yourself up, you have to do something. You can't just put the ball down.
It didn't spark much conversation, so it's not going to, but it was a situation that theoretically could have sparked a lot of off-season rule changing, because who's to say once I've taken my first hit as a running back, for example, and a guy's got his jersey on me, that I'm not giving myself up now. So right. Now if you strip the ball, hey, no, I gave myself up. I'd given myself up. I mean, what's giving yourself up?
There's a reason. There's a distinction between the rule in the college game where once you're on the ground, you're down, whether somebody's touched you or not. In the NFL, right. Specifically, you have to be touched for you to be down. You can kneel.
You can't give yourself up. For example, it's never done, but even in plays besides fair punts, you technically can fair catch and stuff.
Yeah, you can fair catch, you can kneel, you can slide if you're a quarterback.
Yeah, I think, again, if more had been made of the play, I think we would have been looking at some serious discussion, but it didn't affect the game, so it's not going to get much traction, so it's going to go by. But yeah, it's like you said, it's a definite flaw in the game.
I think what's interesting is that both coaches had legitimate reasons to be upset. Sean McVay, I feel less so, because his player is the one that didn't make it super obvious enough, because he basically rolled down and just got up and placed the ball, as opposed to
in his mind he thought he was being how much more obvious can I be? I spotted the ball for the next play, but that's not what in the heat of the moment. That's not what it looked like to anybody else.
It was way too fast for him, because he caught the ball, rolled onto the ground, and then just put the ball down and started running away. Bobby Wagner's right there, and he just picks it up because he's a smart dude. And then Pete Carroll's what are you talking about? That's not how you give yourself up. Because at least with a quarterback, they take a knee, they slide. I've never seen a player make that move. And I think you're right. Yeah, it's something that's going to get revisited. And ultimately, it didn't cost anyone in the game other than bragging points for the Seahawks. But I got to feel that's got to be one of the dumbest moves I've seen a player make.
I mean, when you're on defense and you have the lead and you want that clock to run, you would purposely not touch a guy down just to get them few extra seconds, right?
Yeah.
So now you're telling me you can't, that's obsolete, that's not something that you can do because they can
the clock still runs.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
But the thing is that the play clock on the next play doesn't start right away, so that it is just an opportunity for more clock, because until the ref spots the ball, you can't hike the ball, and that's precious time for the offense. And to Zeb's point, it's like that's a great mind game to play. It's like, look, you're not down yet, I'm gonna wait. But like the other thing about that play is, if you wanted to like down the ball, shouldn't you like take a knee? Shouldn't you make some kind of motion like, hey, I'm done? Like, because what would have happened if he just stayed on the ground? Bobby Wagner would have just touched him, and then the play's over, right? But by him like making a move, putting the ball down, and it wasn't even close to it wasn't close to the center of the field, I believe. It was still a little way away from the hash mark. I'm just confused as to what he was going to accomplish, because most of the time the players will run the ball to the ref, who actually spots the ball, you know.
Right.
And that's again, it's like, I get what he was trying to do, but it just seemed like such a bad execution. And I feel like, the more I think about it, the more I want the Seahawks just to get that extra fumble.
Yeah. I mean, it felt like that's the end of the game. We ended it, and yet we had to still play it out.
Yeah.
But
come on.
I think the other thing is, it's just like, because the Rams have been so good, and we talked about it last week on the podcast, that because the Rams have had Seattle's number, and it's always been a challenge. Even the games that we've won against Seattle, because we've only won, before this game, we've only won 2 of the past, I want to say like 8, which is really, really crazy. So we're 3 of 5 now instead of, 2 of 5. But the previous games were always less than a 1 score. Like it was a missed field goal. That was 1 win. And I can't remember what the other one. I think it was the Earl Thomas chopping the ball at the 1 yard line, and then it going out of the back of the end zone for a touchback for Seattle's ball. Those are the only previous wins the Seahawks have had against the Rams. And this particular game, it looked like Seattle's defense was just always in control. And that goal line stand, I mean, that's not even a topic we're going to talk about, but that was got to be one of the most impressive goal line stands I've seen.
Yeah, it was pretty impressive.
4 chances at the 1 yard line.
I had a better one in Madden 2003. That's it.
There was a better one in 2003?
No. In Madden 2003, I had a better one. Other than that,
I believe that. I believe in Madden. It's almost impossible to stop a quarterback sneak. But yeah, I feel like Jamal Adams, KJ Wright, Jordan Brooks, Carlos Dunlap, they were all over those 4 downs. It was really impressive.
Yeah, it really was. I didn't expect that.
Yeah, you don't expect it, right? You think a good stop on 1st and 2nd, fine, but like, they're going to get it in on 3rd.
Like, if you stop them for 2 or 3 plays, you feel like you've sort of got the moral victory, right? Yeah, even if they score now, but we know we beat them 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 4 plays, so it's something to take away from it. You feel, hey, not that bad.
Right.
But I didn't expect the full like, the full go home.
I think my favorite...
No points for you.
Exactly, yeah. My favorite thing, and anytime I find a clip of it, I watch it again and again, and it's on that 4th down play when they get the stop. All the guys that are not on the ground, they just run. They're just running away from the lines. Like, we're done, we're out of here, we got it. And they're just like celebrating. It's like, it's one of the most joyful things to see a defense do. Like, they're all, it's the last day of school, the bell's rung, and they're just running, booking it as fast as they can. And that's what all those defensive guys, as soon as they got that stop on 4th down, they're just booking it for the sideline. And it's just so much fun and joy to see on these players.
I think the only play that gets the defense up bigger than a goal line stand is a safety. Defense, when they get a safety, they're like super stoked. But after that, the next best, biggest, coolest thing is a big 4th down stop, especially on the goal line.
And I'm going to critique you, just not that I don't disagree with you, because I think that's true. That's probably one of the biggest plays. But on a safety, the entire defense is making the safety sign. They're all making the cone with their 2 hands above their heads. But on that play, I just love that energy. They're just like running off the field, like we're done. There's nothing more we could do. So I'm really impressed with not only this defensive game, but it's ultimately the same offense that they've faced for years and years and years, and for whatever reason, this particular time, there's really nothing that they could do to make it better.
No.
Yeah. Well, it's settled. That's the end of the show, guys. We're good here. No,
Got it.
I was going to say, there's always something you can do, but yeah, I get the point.
The Seahawks are the newly crowned NFC West Division Champions. This is the first one since the 2016 season and the fifth crown for Pete in the past 11 years. This was a really hard-fought division with the title coming down to the stretch. The Seahawks are still contending for playoff seeding and can end up as high as the first seed or as low as the third seed, and could also face any wildcard team. And we really won't know what happened because every team is still playing at 125 on Sunday. But first, the Seahawks have to travel to Arizona to face the displaced San Francisco 49ers. The Niners have been relegated down to playing spoiler after playing in the Super Bowl yet last year. This is the Hawkscast podcast. And Zeb, we're going to fire off. We're going to talk about topic number one here. And I want to know, does this division crown feel like more of a surprise with how up and down this year was? Or is this something that you expected?
I've kind of felt like we were the best team in the division this year, even though there was some obvious low points where it looked less and less likely. I don't know that I'm surprised by it, but yeah, there was times where it felt, as good as we were at certain points, we were just as bad at others, and in a season like that with such a large swing from the ups and the downs, it's hard to get a real good grasp on how good or bad a team is. So, if you'd asked me six weeks ago how sure I was that we were going to win the division, it would probably have been a much lower percentage than 2 weeks ago or in like week 3 or 4. So, it's good. It feels really good. It's been 5 years since the last division crown?
Yeah, 4 years officially.
4 years.
4 years.
So even though it kind of, we kind of feel like we've owned this division pretty much since Russell Wilson took over, the fact that it had been that long since we actually won it makes it feel pretty special to me.
Is it weird to think about in 9 years, Russell Wilson has only won the division 4 times?
Yeah, I guess, when you look at it like that, when you look at the actual numbers, it feels like less than it should have been. In 9 years, I would have guessed we won it at least 6, but I guess not.
I mean, he's made the playoffs 4 other times in addition to the divisions, but yeah.
Right.
It is kind of weird to think about.
Yeah, at a certain point, the older years kind of, as long as we made it into the playoffs, it doesn't matter so much whether we won the division or not. In hindsight.
2020, right?
Right.
Ross, what about you? Do you find that this division feels like a surprise?
I mean, if you go all the way back to our projections week 1 or preseason, I think we all had us in the running or favored or right in there, right? But I mean, yeah, if we're honest, we had those earnest discussions about our historically bad defense and can it turn around? And I mean, I think I gave a hypothesis or something that for how it potentially could get better. But there were some pretty serious deep concerns. There was moments I felt like we were just about to just kind of fade out to an 8-8 season. So I don't know if I'm surprised, but I wouldn't say it was like something I took for granted anymore after like some of the trials and travails of the season. And apologies to Ken Norton. I really hate the fact that we have a society that constantly calls for people's jobs, and I try not to do it much, but I did it. I think with some justification. I'm not one of those people who calls for people's jobs at the drop of a hat. I think that's really, I really dislike that. But
are you saying that if we check your Twitter feed during a game, it's not a roller coaster of like, they should go for it, we should fire everyone. Oh, nope, hire everyone. Extend.
I don't tweet during games. I talk to you guys during games. I keep my excess to a small circle.
Ross is trying to keep his receipts offline. That's what he's saying.
Essentially, yeah. But I don't think I'm given to. I mean, it's not because I'm like so wise or something. I'm just old. I think the older you get, the less given you are sometimes to overreaction, and so I don't think I overreacted. So even with Ken Norton, like I'll own it. I apologize, but I really did think after last season and the first half of the season there was justification. But he's figured out how to use his tools and his toys, and he and Carroll have gotten their act together. I don't think it's just a project of who we played, because a lot of those teams that we played, they didn't score, that few points against other people either. So I don't know if we're the best, as somebody said, it was Jamal Adams.
Jamal Adams said that the Seahawks are the best defense.
The best defense in the league. I don't know if we're there, but I wouldn't want to play us right now.
Here's the thing about what Jamal said. And again, this is a big stretch, so bear with me. If you take out Seattle's passing defense, just like the number of yards they've given up through the air for the whole season, and you factor in their rush defense, their sacks, their turnovers that they've generated, the points per games they've given up for the whole season, not just like these last few games, they are marginally improved. Not just like in the middle of the pack. There are top 7, top 8, top 5 in a lot of these categories now, which is really impressive. And I think that's the surprise. Like you were talking about, Ross, we all are homers. We all love the Seahawks. We all think they're always going to do well. And as the season ebbs and flows, you have like, okay, maybe I was a little bit wrong here. And yes, I got confirmation over here. But the way that this team started in that first third of the season and where we are in this last third and what the team was in the middle, it's like 3 different seasons all wrapped into one. It's almost 3 different teams that we're seeing. What they did at the beginning of the year was just like, they couldn't stop anyone, but they could score on everyone. And in the middle of the year, they were like all over the place. And at the end of the year, they're like, our offense doesn't need to do a whole lot. This is like 2012 Seahawks, except for like 3 games at the end of the year where like, Russ, just keep us in the game, and the defense is going to keep it light and easy, and it's always going to be a 1-score game. And they're playing like classic Pete Carroll ball, which I know a lot of people hate, but they sure do win a lot of games that way.
I felt like this season really felt like the classic trilogy plotline. Like the
That's a good
opening
point.
act, you introduce the characters and they have some success. So the first half of the season, we're just kicking butt. Yeah, the defense is a worry, but we're scoring points left, right, and center with Metcalf, and everybody gets introduced. Then you put your characters into the worst situation possible. That's the middle of the season. Defense can't do anything right, and the offense slows down, and it just looks like we're doomed. And then the third part of the story, you resolve the conflicts and people emerge, and there's like the story arc is complete. The defense has improved. The offense has gotten back to its roots. It's a very, very classic trilogy story.
Ooh, I love that. That feels so right, and I agree with you like 100%, because that's really what this season has been like. We've played 15 games, and through 5, and 5, that's really what you can take out of this season. They started 5-0. They then went, 2?
When you use that the rest of the week at the water cooler, you credit me.
Well, I mean, they're all virtual water coolers, and
yeah.
I would definitely throw credit.
Watercooler.com.
Yes, exactly. It's just a bunch of Zoom meetings with water coolers, and people just randomly walk up to them.
I sometimes forget like how messed up you guys still are. So
yeah, 20.
I mean, we're not doing great. We've gotten much worse, but our bad is literally 1% of what yours is. So
yeah, we've got nothing to brag about right now. But I think, but back to your point about like what this season has been and what it's coming to. I think it still is a surprise, because I don't think you could have ever expected to see a team shift so dynamically over the course of the season. A lot of talking heads on NFL.com, on ESPN, all the networks, they've all talked about there is no team like the Seahawks that have reinvented themselves halfway through the year. You look at what they've done these last few games, and people can poo-poo and say like, oh, well, they didn't play anyone good. They're still football teams. The Jets won 2 games down the stretch against 2 really good teams.
They beat who did they beat?
They beat the Rams. and they beat the Steelers.
Yeah.
Right? Steelers are going to be number 2, number 3 in the AFC. The Rams, before we took a dump on them, they were potentially the scariest team in the NFC to a lot of teams because they said their defense was so good. And Seattle put 20 points on them, which doesn't sound like a lot. But for that defense, with Aaron Donald and how good Aaron Donald is, I think that was really, really big. So, yeah.
I don't think there's any disputing it. It was probably the best victory. It wasn't the funnest necessarily, but it was the biggest and most impactful. It was the signature game of the season.
I feel like I want to talk about, and then we're going to move on, and you guys definitely feel free to chime in. But that final drive, so they got the ball back with about 7.5 minutes, and they drove down the field just slowly, methodically, just finding all of the plays. DK Metcalf had huge third down conversions. Tyler Lockett got free on a huge play. Russell Wilson had just great accuracy on that final drive, and then it caps off with a touchdown to Hollister on like a perfectly executed rub route where the two receivers essentially create friction for the defense, and then Hollister gets free and he just grabs a perfectly completed pass. He gets redemption for last year because last year he was stopped on the half-yard line for the NFC West, and this year he scores the game, clinching, like, no opportunity for the Rams to come back after that. And it was such a great drive. Very, very impressive by Skybox Shoddy.
It's one of those things that makes the times that we weren't able to do that even more frustrating. Like,
yeah.
What I don't know. It's an old thing. It's always been said for years and years and years. Like towards the end of the game, all of a sudden teams can score and move the ball where the whole game long up to that point they couldn't. And it's like, why? Why can't you just do this the whole time? But obviously there's a lot of reasons why. There's a lot of factors, but it felt good. That felt like old Russ, right? That was like the Russ that we know, the Terminator Russ, the Russ that you know can march down the field and win you the damn game. That's the Russ I want to see in the playoffs.
Yeah. And I think that's a really great chance that we're going to see that. I'm really excited for that. Final thoughts before we move ahead here?
I had one, but I forgot it.
All right. Well, hopefully it'll come back. Ross, I'm going to start you off with topic number 2 here, and I want to know, has the Adams Dunlap been the best acquisition since Michael Bennett and Cliff Averill? Long pause. Just thinking deep about it.
Gathering on my teeth.
And is there a better acquisition in your mind? I personally think that Michael Bennett and Cliff Averill were the catalyst to our 2 Super Bowl run. As far as like acquisitions, not necessarily drafted or anything else.
I'm probably blanking, but I can't really think of in between those 2 pairs a lot of acquisitions that really, really, really worked out.
Not very many.
Jimmy Graham?
McDougal
was always like a really, really good like stopgap. He's just like a really serviceable player.
I mean, you could go back and say like, I can't remember if they're in the same year. I think they're a year apart, but like there's like Chris Clemens, a Marshawn Lynch,
Clemens and Raheem Brock that year was a good duo.
Sorry, who?
Chris Clemens and Raheem Brock.
Yeah, that's true. I think we forget about Brock.
I think 2010. We brought them in, and all of a sudden we could rush the passer and get sacks.
Yeah,
Bennett Averill is probably one of the historical. If you were like going to go like duos that were picked up in an offseason by any team, that's got to be one of the all-time. Like they used to do those lists. I don't know if they still do them on NFL.com. Like top 10 pickup duos in the offseason.
Yeah.
It's got to be one of those things because, I don't know if it's. Yeah, I'd buy that. That's without those 2 guys, we don't go to the Super Bowl. So, and Adams Dunlap. I think it's even more impressive because Dunlap. We argued about this. How much of it was a plan? I still would say that it was somewhat of a controversy. Seeing how they didn't want to overspend and seeing what was available, it felt to me like not necessarily Dunlap, but it felt like they thought at some point during the season, they're just going to make a move there. They're just going to try to get to the beginning of the season, and because what was available in the offseason wasn't to their taste or was going to be too expensive, they were just going to wait till somebody's disgruntled and get somebody for a better price.
That's got to be a gamble, though, right?
It is. But at the same time, like, that's how they play. Like, their number one thing is to not overpay. And so, like, when they see that what was available, and like I got burned last year pretty badly with what's his name? Dude came in Ansa.
Oh, Ziggy Ansah, yeah.
Ziggy, yeah.
Got burned pretty bad, and I think the Ziggy thing is why they didn't go after Everson Griffin,
Right.
And which is, I think we can agree, was the right move. So I think if if it's a gamble, but But I think they had like 3 or 4 people kind of identify that were likely to be, maybe they're currently gruntled, but by week 6 they will be disgruntled, and they target them. It's a huge gamble, but it wasn't there in the offseason. People, we talked about this. I got really annoyed at Seahawks Twitter. It kept saying they're not making any moves, they're not making news. Well, they've invested a whole bunch of draft capital. They brought Bruce Irvin, and they brought I always forget his name,
Benson Mayowa.
That guy. Which is another 8-sack guy. They addressed it, but they didn't bring the big guy because there was nobody that was going to be worth it. And they thought, like, we'll hold our cards close to the vest and gamble, see what's available, see who gets disgruntled. And that worked out.
Like maybe ungruntled?
Ungruntled.
Yeah. Like, see who's in the process of getting ungruntled. Who's ungruntling as we speak.
I mean, I feel like the last ungruntled player that they did pick up was Marshawn Lynch,
Marshawn was very ungruntling.
He was the guy that the Seahawks and Pete and John had said, like, we've been trying to acquire Marshawn for a while. Buffalo wouldn't budge, and then he just, he didn't play for whatever reason. Came to Seattle and just, like, blew it up.
Like, Lynch is one of the all-time examples also, I think, that we never really think about as fans, is like, how much does geography affect the game? So, was there a worse match for Marshawn Lynch as far as city-wise than Buffalo?
Yeah,
like
probably
Marshawn Lynch in Buffalo.
Yeah.
Green Bay and Buffalo. I just don't think it does matter. Just especially certain kinds of people. It does matter where you are. I was never when I did my when I was studying in Stockton, California. I was never of sorts. It was such a foreign geography and lay of the land for me. I never got comfortable with that. The climate, the atmosphere, the complete lack of mountains. It was weird for me, and I never got comfortable with it. And the culture, the local culture, and like Buffalo was a really bad match for Marshawn. So I think we underestimate how much that affected the long term career for him.
Tony chiming in and saying it's all about the taxes. The taxes have a big advantage in Seattle. He's saying that's why.
Marshawn Lynch wasn't. There's more than one state that doesn't have a tax, though, state tax. Though.
Interesting thing about Marshawn is like super smart with his money. The money that he spends, it's all from advertisement. He's not spent a lot of his NFL money. So
I've heard at the point he had retired from the Seahawks, he had never cashed a game check.
Yeah, so he always says, you take care of your chicken. So
take care of your mentals as well.
Yes. Zeb, what about you? Do you think that there has been a better acquisition since Jamal Adams and Dunlap here, since Bennett and Arvil?
I don't think there's much question that there has not. Bennett Arvil is probably the perfect example of taking a good team and putting it over the top, giving us those pieces that we needed to get to and win a championship. I believe that Adams and Dunlap have that potential. For this season, clearly they've been the game changers for us. Bennett and Arvil lasted a few seasons, and they were very effective. So in order for it to live up to that, I don't know that we have to win a Super Bowl for it to be considered as good, but it would help. And then, if they can stay here and play at a decently high level for a few seasons, then I think we're looking at something pretty similar. But there's no question that, in particular, Dunlap, once he got here, things seemed to change. And then, adding in the healthy Adams is obviously part of that as well. But Dunlap. I mean, you can look at the numbers. I don't have them in front of me, but the first part of the season, we were not getting pressure on the quarterback. We were not getting sacks, and since then, we've been among the best in the league doing it. So, I think it's pretty easy to look at those two guys and say that they're a big reason why that happened.
I mean, usually we create topics to try and find like controversy. We try and find like different opposing opinions. I feel like this one, we're all in agreement. So here's a stat that I feel like really signifies what the addition of a Carlos Dunlap and what a Jamal Adams does, because it's not just about them, it's about what they do for the players next to them. So Jaron Reed, a player that I love, in the games that he played before the Buffalo game, he had 1 sack. And again, sacks are not the be-all, end-all, but it's just like a good thing to look at. In the 6 games that Jaron Reed has played since the Buffalo game, he's had a total of 5.5 sacks. That's 6 games, 5.5 sacks. 2 of those games, he had multi-sack games. One was the LA Rams game that we just witnessed, and Jamal Adams has set the record for sacks by a DB. I don't think there is a way to really speak about how much of impact Carlos Dunlap has made, not just at his position, because he's had 5 sacks in I think 7 games, which is great, but it's also what that does to the players around him. Alton Robinson, 5th, 6th round pick. He has 4 sacks on the year. 3 of his 4 sacks have come in the 4th quarter. Poona Ford, a 3rd-year player, getting great penetration, playing well. Playing well enough that when a guy like Brian Monet comes back, they let Snacks Harrison go, and he's now going to play for the Green Bay Packers. So
he wasn't happy.
Yeah,
he wasn't very happy about that, was he?
No. I mean, I definitely understand his position, and I don't begrudge him for being upset that he was not activated, because this year in particular, the way it works for like who gets activated and who gets inactive, I'm sure also has a huge impact to him as financial incentive. But yeah, they must like Brian Monet a lot better than 33-year-old Snacks Harrison. So I mean, I can't fault them. They've made right decisions all year long. But yeah, that's a little bit of a stinger that he's going to go to Green Bay.
You're going to tell him all of our secrets.
Secrets. Watch where Jamal Adams lines up. Don't forget.
Yeah.
But yeah, I am really excited about what Jamal Adams and Carlos Dunlap have added to this team, because they're both on the roster for next year. They're both under contract. Carlos Dunlap has a big contract coming up next year, and I think if they choose to extend him, or they have a lot of options for next year. And Jamal Adams, I feel like the extension's on the way. There's a lot of money that is going to fall off and they can use towards him, but they also have other things. But that's a conversation for the offseason. That's a conversation for 2021. For this year and for 2020, best offseason acquisitions in a long time for Pete and John. So I'm really happy with what they've done.
Yeah, it's been good.
Have you guys been keeping up on Jamal Adams and his social media?
not a super close eye.
Did you see him after the Rams game with his hypercolor pink tie-dye sweater and his cigar he brought to the podium?
Oh yeah.
I heard that he lit it wrong twice.
That's what Booger said.
Yeah.
I don't know cigars well enough.
I don't know if I would trust a guy like with the nickname Booger, but so in last week's press
I don't
conference,
know how that guy still has that name. How do you still have that after you're 20 years old?
Because you have the mind of a 20-year-old. I don't think that dude's
like, I can't take him seriously. Like I cannot take the dude seriously, no matter what he does and how intelligent he is.
You know what? I don't feel he gives you a reason to take him seriously. That's how I think about him.
I mean, like, they keep giving him more responsibility. It seems like he's doing well, but at some point, somebody's got to pull him aside and say, "Now we need a grown-up name."
Well, yeah.
You're not a character on Revenge of the Nerds.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong for sure. But Jamal Adams in the game last week when they beat the Washington football team, It's Seahawks had secured a playoff spot, and he goes and he talks about how excited he is. He said, this is normal for Seattle, but this is new for me. I'm excited. This is amazing. And then they win the division, and then he's even more ramped up. He's even more excited. So, people say we haven't done anything yet, but this is new to me. I've never experienced this. So that energy, obviously because they're winning, and that it is infectious, and it's great to see that he is the perfect type of player for Pete Carroll, I feel like, because he obviously wants to win. He obviously wants to play. He's very into the culture that Pete has cultivated, and it's been a great success so far. And even Carlos Dunlap, in the few press conferences that I've seen him, he's saying the same thing. He said the Seahawks saved his career. Like, he was not interested in football until he came to the team. So I think more credit is deserved and owed to John and Pete for those acquisitions.
Definitely. And I think it can't be ignored that Adams, just his presence, his attitude, it's infectious, and the guys around him feed off of it, and it just brings the spirit of the whole defense and the whole team probably up some. And it's, for his occasional mishaps and his missed assignments and stuff like that, I think he more than makes up for it just by being that emotional leader that we haven't had since probably Earl and Sherm, right?
Yeah, especially that vocal leader, because we know how serious everyone takes Bobby, but it's just not the same kind of leader,
Right.
Final thoughts on the acquisition of Jamal Adams and Carlos Dunlap.
If you had to choose only one, who would you have chosen to have on your team?
Between Adams and Dunlap?
Yeah.
Adams, only because he's younger and has the potential to be here for longer, I think.
I think
Sure,
that's
from that angle.
I think that's from that angle. It's hard to think anything else. I would go on a limb and think I would seriously consider Carlos Dunlap because he plays on the D line exclusively, and the impact that he's made not just to his position but all the other guys on the line. I feel like have played so much better, and we've seen flashes. So I think Zeb's probably right due to the age and experience factor, but
right.
I feel like the impact of the defensive line has been so huge since Carlos Dunlap has been here.
Yeah, if you're starting a franchise, for sure, Adams. But if I had to choose, I want to impact. I can only have one player to put on the Seahawks for this year. I think it's Dunlap. I like Neal as well. I think we have more depth at strong safety.
I think
Ryan Neal has been huge.
Dunlap makes sense because of guys like Neal and Reed coming in as well. You know what I mean? Adams, we'd be okay without Adams because we have those guys.
They got to find a way to get Neal on the field next year a whole bunch. So.
I mean, he's playing quite a bit. I mean, which is great. But yeah, I think that's the thing that's so interesting. And we haven't even talked about DJ Reed either.
Nope.
But yeah, I think
Neal's in running to be my next jersey acquisition. Yes,
35. You're gonna wear a 35? I don't know how I feel about a 35 jersey.
Why?
It's too I think structured. I like more prime numbers for my jerseys. 35 it's 7 and 5. It's I don't know. Something is just it's like if someone wears a 40 jersey and it's like, man, you can't wear that jersey. You're not cool enough to pull it off. Unless you're an actual fire hydrant, who is it? The dude that Leonard he wore
Weaver?
40, Leonard Weaver. He wore 43, I feel like. Is that Max Strong wears 38. If you're a fullback, you get to wear that number, but 35, I don't know. I mean, if you do it, I think that's awesome because I'm really excited about Ryan Neal. Do
you know who David Sims is?
Dave Sims?
David Sims, yeah. He was the Seahawks. He was a fullback for the Seahawks in the early years. In 1978, he led the NFL in rushing touchdowns, even though we were on a crappy team. He had an injury, so his season was cut short. But he was the Seahawks' first number 35, and he was pretty awesome.
You know who the 35 that I think of? I don't know why. No, before him, the old school 35 that I think of is Neil Anderson from the Chicago Bears. Coincidentally, another Neil.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, see,
35 win yields. There's a thing there.
I don't know if there's like a current day 35 that I think is really great. Maybe that's why I'm just biased against it.
Could be.
It shows my age. So it shows my age. But let's move ahead. Let's move on to topic number 3. We're going to be talking about a little bit of the playoffs. So Zeb, this is the Hawkscast Corner. We're going to focus on the NFC West. But are you rooting for the Rams and Cardinals to make the playoffs, knowing you may face them in the wild card round and divisional round and maybe even a conference championship?
I'm not rooting for them to make the playoffs, but I'm not worried about it if they do. Like, I'm not rooting against them to miss the playoffs, or for us not to have to play them. I guess I don't particularly care who we play in the early rounds. I think we're the only team that can beat ourselves in those early rounds. I think teams like the Packers and the Buccaneers pose a little bit more of a challenge. Not saying that these other teams aren't a challenge, but I don't have a preference necessarily. I don't care that much. I feel like the talent level, the quality of these teams that are going to end up being in the wild cards, they're all pretty similar to me. They're all pretty significantly flawed and can be really good at times. So I think that I guess the injuries are something to think about there. The Rams without the Hollywood pretty boy quarterback,
Jared Goff.
Yeah, Ryan Gosling. I think that without him, and he's not great. We've talked about this before, but without him, I think they're really in trouble. And then the Cards potentially without Murray are kind of in the same boat. I don't want to root to play for a team that's missing their starting quarterback because I feel like that gives us an edge. That's not what I'm in it for. I want to see some good games, but I feel like we should be able to beat whoever we're playing in the first round of the playoffs. So I'm not rooting for or against either of those teams.
Ross, what about you? Are you hoping that an NFC because potentially both teams could make it. If Chicago loses, both teams are in. How can they both
still make it?
Because Tampa Bay has secured one spot, but if the Rams lose and Chicago loses, that means that the Rams would have a 9-7 record, the Cards would have a 9-7 record, Chicago would have an 8-8 record. Chicago gets knocked out. So Chicago needs to win, and if they win, that means the loser of the Rams-Cardinals game is out of the playoffs.
I don't want the Chicago Bears in the playoffs. I guess I'm rooting for both of the NFC West teams to get in there. Chicago's really come on of late, right? So I really would like them to go home so you don't have to worry about them. And I'll take my chances with Kyle Murray or one of those made-up names they have as their backup quarterback.
But if Chicago wins, that helps Seattle potentially get the first or second seed in the playoffs as well.
It's all complicated. At first, the way it was described to me, I, without actually looking what has to happen, I thought our chances of the bye were really low, but it's not that low. If Chicago wins and we win, and who?
Carolina has to beat New Orleans.
There you go. That's the one. They don't even have a.
But here's the thing: if Seattle and Green Bay are tied at 12-4, which means Seattle wins, Green Bay loses in their next game, Seattle owns the tiebreaker. So wherever Seattle and Green Bay are tied up at 12-4, we get the better seed. What happens is we lose the tiebreaker to New Orleans if New Orleans and Seattle are both 12-4.
But New Orleans can't lose because they're playing Carolina, and Carolina doesn't have CMC or the backup. Next Seahawks?
Mike Davis.
Mike Davis, but
is he not playing?
Mike Davis, yeah.
But Carolina has not played without McCaffrey all year long. Obviously, Mike Davis is huge.
And there wasn't much drop off, but I don't really. Do the Saints have anything? The Saints obviously still playing for home field advantage.
Saints need to play because that's the thing.
They need to win the home field advantage.
They need to win as well. So every team is trying to win.
Carolina doesn't have much of a chance. So in that case, then I guess I still want the NFC West people in. Bam. There's my decision.
All right.
I've made my decision. Do you guys I just realized we need to take a quick timeout. Marianne from Gilligan's Island has died of COVID-19.
Yes, R.I.P. Marianne. I was a Marianne fan, not a Ginger fan.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also Adolfo Quinones, Shabadoo from Breaking and Breaking.
Oh, yeah.
He just died as well. Now, he just the other day said he didn't have COVID-19 and just got over his really bad cold, but then said he was fine. Now, 3 days later, he's dead. So I'm thinking he did have COVID-19 and he had a false negative.
That would not be great.
Also, I don't know if it's COVID or not, and most people won't know who this is, but legendary Seattle DJ Cutfather passed away yesterday.
R.I.P. Cutfather.
2020 is just not done with us, man.
Yeah. Rest in peace to Cutfather. He was pretty instrumental in the Seattle hip-hop scene. Him and DJ Nasty Nez and some of those other guys.
So that was a down over timeout. I just found out, so I just wanted to let you know Marianne has passed.
All right. Usually I thought we would save those for shout-outs, but we'll save that. We'll save shout-outs for someone else.
I just saw it flash on my thing, and I was pretty shocked. So,
to be fair, you're in a different time zone. I did see the Marianne thing earlier today, but yes, it's this playoffs, and I think this is exactly what the NFL wanted with 7 playoff teams, and the fact that outside of Kansas City and outside of the NFC East, no seeding is defined yet. Like, the Steelers are still fighting for the 2nd and 3rd spot. The AFC South winner is yet to be determined. There are 4 teams left fighting for 3 wildcard spots and the AFC South. In the NFC, there's, 3 teams still fighting for the NFC East. It's pretty crazy, and I think the NFL couldn't be more excited that additional playoff spot is still making Week 17 games, still meaningful. Because it's been a while since Week 17 games have been this competitive, I feel like.
NFL's so smart. Do you remember 10 years ago, Week 17 was a joke?
Yeah, because there was usually one team that just blew everyone away, and they, when Seattle won the NFC, won the number 1 seed back in 2005, the only reason why we played anybody was because we wanted Shaun Alexander to get a touchdown, because they happened to end up on the 1-yard line.
Right.
Yeah. It's not even just that. The NFL rearranged where they put certain things, right? So a lot of the interconference or inter-squad or interdivision games are put really, really late and so on. So it wasn't just coincidence. They managed. God, certain people in the NFL office are really, really smart. Some of them are just unbelievably dumb. When it comes to straight getting stuff done, they're pretty smart. But when it comes to anything with human relations or PR, they're unbelievably bad. So
it's all the smart progressive people are working on scheduling,
on the schedule, yeah.
And all hey, how can we make a Week 17 game actually meaningful all of a sudden? And then all the people talking about PR and relationships and visualization are 70-year-old guys that don't even know what Twitter is. So yeah, it's pretty crazy. But we are running late, so we're going to push ahead. We're going to go move on to topic number 4 real quick. The original topic, we always focus on, obviously, the Seahawks' next opponent. And it was originally just going to be that the 49ers suck, but we have an official topic. So, Ross, I want to ask, are there any concerns about the 49ers playing spoilers in a game the Seahawks still need to win?
See, earlier this season, I said the Seahawks don't have trap games and things like that, and then they lost to the Giants. So I'm just gonna plead the fifth here. I just feel like I'm gonna curse us. No, there's not gonna be a spoiler. They're on that number 3 quarterback, and Richard's not playing, and is he? I don't think. They don't have much left in the tank. They're just they won last week, right?
They did win. They beat the Cardinals. The Cardinals would have locked up a playoff spot if they had won, I believe.
So I think that's more about the Cardinals choking. They got a really young team. They'll come around. Earlier this year, we were talking the Cardinals were the ones who weren't going to be in the running anymore. It was going to be the 49ers, us, and the Rams. So the Rams have, the 49ers have dropped off faster than we thought. They had like literally like a 1 year window. I don't. No, I don't. I don't fear. They still have good players. I don't want to say, but like Ayuk is not going to play, which is sad because I like to say Ayuk.
Their left tackle is out.
Yeah, I mean, like I don't know. They're just getting a bunch of street free agents just to throw out there. They're not even playing. They're not even allowed to play in their home state. So whatever. Yeah, I don't fear this game. I'm not going to take it for granted anymore after the Giants game. I learned my lesson. The hubris, legendary, example there. But yeah, it'll be a fun game. I don't think there's a much. I don't feel I'm going to have stomach in my nuts, even if it's a 1-score game in the fourth quarter.
Fair enough. Zeb, what about you? How you feeling about this this final game against the no longer reigning but still reigning NFC champions?
Well, so I know that the 49ers are going to try to win this game. And I know that they're, despite all their injuries and stuff, they're still pretty good when they're on, whatever that means. And we talked about this last year and probably the year before. The Seahawks have this kind of tendency to lose to a division opponent in the last couple of weeks of the season, even when we're the superior team. That doesn't mean anything, but for whatever reason, it seems to happen. So, we should be able to beat this team by 3 or 4 scores, but who knows? Anything could happen, and I don't think it's a gimme by any stretch of the imagination. But I do feel like 12-4 sure feels a lot better than 11-5, and if the stars were to align, we're going to need that 12-4 to get that number 1 seed. So I'm hoping that there's no trap game or guys being lazier. I don't want to let down. I'd like to go into the playoffs on a winning note.
You guys are being very, very cautious. Very cautious. I'm surprised. There should be zero concern for this game. Third string quarterback, their best running back. He did put up 180 yards against the Cardinals. But who are they going to throw the ball to? George Kittle all day? He had five targets and 4 catches last week.
Isn't that what they did one game to us last year, though? All they did was throw to George Kittle and they beat us?
That was that, but that was like because the only game that the Niners won last year against Seattle was the last game of the year, and that's
only
when
a Kittle can stop a Kittle.
Yeah, I mean maybe, but I mean,
sorry to interrupt. I'll let you finish. But first of all, you said they're on the third string quarterback, but for the 49ers, they don't really have a number 1, but they don't have a number 3. They've got a bunch of high number 2 quarterbacks.
I'm only afraid of Nick Mullins. I've made that very clear that I've been wrong about Nick Mullins.
But and even the running backs, they don't have a great, super great one running back. All the running backs are an RB2. So
Jeff Wilson's pretty good.
Jeff Wilson's the one that went off on the Cardinals last game. And I feel
I guess I don't respect him enough because of his name. He sounds much like a history teacher.
He got a simple name.
Yeah, it sounds like someone I would work with, not someone I would watch on your
athlete name.
Yeah, get a better name.
Yeah, at least have a cool nickname.
That dude should convert to Islam or Nation of Islam and get some cool name like Muhammad.
Or find a cool nickname that's just for whatever reason we're just gonna rechristen him as like Jet. His name is Jet Wilson instead of
Booger.
Jeff Wilson.
Thank you. Something like that.
Booger Wilson.
Not Booger. It has to be a grown-up nickname. White Shoes Wilson.
That's actually a very classic sports name, I feel like. But I feel like this game is prime for Seattle to make a huge statement. And again, a lot can happen. The 49ers are going to definitely try to win because they would love nothing more than to end their season on a really bad year against the team that has won the division. And ultimately, the Packers and the Saints might have a huge lead going into the fourth quarter of their game, which means Seattle will be solidly set up to win the 3rd seed. So ultimately it may not mean much, but like Zeb said, finishing a year 12-4 is just so much nicer than finishing a year 11-5. Because last year we were 11-5, 12-4 would have won the division. We've already won the division at 11-4, but if we can get to 12-4, it would feel so much more complete. That's a 75% win percentage. That's wonderful.
Yeah, that's great. Let's get it.
Yeah.
I'm on board with that.
But yeah, I mean, in all truth, what the 49ers are, they're decimated by injuries. They're not great at any one particular thing just because they have no consistency in that team. They had a great running game last week, but that running game hasn't been there all year long, you know. George Kittle obviously has been important for them, but he hasn't played all year. He's missed a ton of games. There's no consistency in this team, so I feel as if there's not a lot that Seattle really needs to focus on because no one knows what's going to happen. I mean, we got a prediction for who's actually going to finish this game for them, but yeah, like who are their quarterbacks to speak of? Jimmy Garoppolo has not played great for that team, even when healthy, and the last game he played, and potentially the last game he'll play as a 49er, was against the Seahawks. So we'll see what will happen for them in the offseason, but for this game alone, I'm not concerned because they have too many things to overcome to make this the game of their year when I feel like they already had that opportunity a year ago. Final thoughts on the Niners?
I don't know, man. They beat the Cardinals last week. And the Cardinals have beat us, so.
Yeah, I mean, by that transitive property, yeah, it
anybody can beat anybody. That's why I say any given Sunday, man.
I mean, the only team I think that cannot beat anyone right now, if the Jags were to play the Jets, I think the Jets would win.
Oh, clearly. The Jets actually Jaguars don't even have Robinson anymore, so now they're just nothing.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jags.
Not sorry. They're gonna get a number 1 draft pick and they're gonna waste it.
Yeah. Well, I was reading a thing talking about how like very rarely does like a number 1 quarterback come in and turn around a franchise. It just doesn't. That's not how it usually happens.
Yeah,
It
I
has
mean,
happened. Right?
if you go back to it, Kyler Murray is potentially going to take his team to the playoffs in a 2-year window.
But they weren't an awful team to begin with. They weren't that bad.
I mean, they were bad enough to get the number 1 pick in the draft. I mean,
Right, but we always talk about how at the time, literally, they were just a quarterback away. So, you know, ever since I don't know, like Carson Palmer seemed to have one good season there.
Yeah, until his Achilles got blown up in that one playoff game against the Steelers.
And then it seemed like for like 8 or 9 years, man, they were just starting people like John Skelton, who's not even like a proper name. Skelton, you're missing an E. It's Skeleton.
I feel like we lost to one of those trash Cardinals
we did.
Quarterbacks.
One of those
So
just like generic dudes. It's like, again, go back, like it's like Madden, like when you like get the overall rating 65 quarterback, not based on anybody, just a generic dude.
Yeah,
not Skelton though. We crushed Skelton when we played.
I feel like we're not in position to trash on like bad NFC West quarterbacks that we've lost to.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not a ton, but yes, you're very much right.
Is Haskins going to be a Seahawk next year?
No,
yes.
not at all. Not at all.
He might be.
No,
Not
that would be the ultimate.
Like
that would be the ultimate reclamation project. I don't see it happening. Seattle wants.
It's the Tavares Jackson, Geno Atkins rehab like treadmill, isn't it?
No, Geno Smith was nothing like that.
Geno Atkins.
Geno Atkins is a tackle.
Geno Smith was hoping like at some point Russ gets hurt and then he gets to play, he gets to get with a good team and he gets to start somewhere.
Dude, I got a prediction about Geno Smith if he's going to play. So we're actually let's jump into some predictions right now.
Let's go for it.
All right, Ross, I'm going to hit you up first. What is your final score for the Seahawks at the Arizona Cardinal Niners?
38-19.
38-19. I'm trying to think. What is that? A Max Strong to
touchdown of 4 field goals allowed, and then like 5 touchdowns and a field goal for us.
Okay.
Who was number 19? Logan Payne.
Logan Payne. Yeah, that's.
One of those guys.
I was struggling to find a 19. Did Brandon Stokely wear 19?
14.
He wore 14. Okay.
I think Logan Payne wore 14 also.
Okay.
I know there was a guy. There was definitely a guy. Yeah, it was Logan Payne.
All right, Zeb, what's your final score?
I wanted to say 38-19, so I guess I'll say 35-17.
35-17. It's not a bad score.
Price is right.
Myers misses his one and only field goal.
Ooh.
Oh no! Don't curse them all.
Oh, we got to
Well,
knock
would
it
you rather
all
have
the
it
way-
happen this
Knock-
weekend, or would you rather have it happen in the playoffs?
True. All right. I'll let that one
I
slide.
guess inevitably. How about neither?
I think that this game's going to be a little bit scoring fair, but just because the Seahawks are going to be very comfortable. They're not going to even bother. So I'm going to say it's 28-17.
Fair.
Seahawks.
Of course, the Seahawks. I told you, there's no concern for the Niners.
All right.
All right, Ross, who is going to finish this game for the 49ers? Quarterback CJ Beathard or Nick Mullins?
Is Nick Mullins like he's higher on the depth chart, but he's semi-hurt, so they're not going to start him?
He did not practice, but he is technically the quarterback ahead of CJ Beathard.
Whoever starts the game doesn't finish it.
So CJ Beathard is the current projected starter. So you're saying
so
Nick Mullins
he's going to
finishes?
start the game, and then we're going to break his ankle. Sorry,
Oof.
wishing it on you. Just inevitable.
Sheesh.
But you'll be okay in time for OTAs.
I mean, surprisingly enough, Seattle has actually hurt quarterbacks, not like violently, not intentionally, but there have been a few quarterbacks this year that have been hurt playing against the Seahawks and haven't been able to finish a game. So you're not far off. Zeb, what about you? Who's going to finish the game for the 49ers?
Who's their emergency? No, I'll go with Beathard just because I hope that's what happens.
All right. Yeah, I don't see a huge injury happening, but I also see that the Niners are not going to do a whole lot, and maybe this is a chance for them to see what they've got next year with CJ. He's been on the team for a while, but yeah, I think that could happen. Ross, yes or no? Are we going to see Richard Sherman play in this game? He was on do not practice today.
I think he wants to play, but I think they're going to be smart and shut him down. Although, well, maybe they won't be smart because he won't be back next year.
Yeah, he's already said that. He's already said he doesn't think he's coming back next year.
So maybe he will play. It's his last chance to audition.
And the next year he'll be a Lion.
Ooh, that sucks. That would be a really.
What if he's a Seahawk? What if he's matured and becomes a Seahawk?
I'd take him back.
I wouldn't. I think it's
Play safety.
pride. I please shut up.
He didn't Earl Thomas the Seahawks.
It's true.
He did. He didn't like throw the finger, but everything he said about Pete Carroll when he left and mocked the team, and like it wasn't like amicable at all. He was mad because they didn't re-sign him. They didn't believe in him after his Achilles, his two Achilles,
Yeah.
But he after ruptured both Achilles essentially. He mocked Pete Carroll for months after that, and he clearly was not a big Russell Wilson fan.
Yeah, and you know what happened? He ended up in the 49ers with Jimmy Garoppolo, and is like, you know what? Maybe Russell Wilson's not so bad.
I was like, he basically predicted once he was gone and like Arvil was gone and all the Bennett was gone, all the cool people, all the cool kids left, that the Seahawks would bottom out, and that's not happening, man.
Zeb, what about you? Richard Sherman makes an appearance in this game, last game of the year.
Nah, he's not playing. He don't want this smoke.
I would love to see Richard Sherman play. I still am a Richard Sherman fan. I don't want him to succeed in the Niners, but I want him to do well, obviously. I would like to see him play, but I kind of feel like there's really nothing that the Niners are going to gain by playing him because they're not going to pick up his contract for next year. They need to play their young guys and see what they've got. He's not going to play. And here is the Geno Smith prediction. Is Geno Smith going to get some garbage time playing time, Ross?
Nope.
Yes.
I'm going to say yes. I think that the Seahawks are just going to be really comfortable. If this defense, even if we sub in a few guys, if they can play as they have over these past few games, and with the quarterback talent that the Niners are going to put out there and that offensive line, I don't see any reason for the Seahawks to play in the fourth quarter with their starters. I think Geno Smith is going to get some more game time action.
2 quick roster notes before we wrap things up. Philip Dorsett, not going to play this year.
Nope.
It's official. All but official. But guess who's back? Back again. Luke Wilson is back.
Techno Thursdays.
Luke Wilson is back. He's going to be on the practice squad. COVID rules.
So the cool thing about what they're doing for the playoffs is before you could only call up a player twice from practice squad to the regular season to your active roster, and in the playoffs it's unlimited. So your practice squad guys can get called up at any time. So I think that's pretty cool. Tony chiming in on the chat saying that no, Richard Sherman is not going to appear, and we missed a prediction, you guys. The question is, will Geno Smith get the flip correct? The answer is no, and the reason for that is Geno only gets to come out on the overtime flips, I believe. Russ gets to come out for the official coin flip, so Geno will not be able to correctly call a coin flip. That's my prediction.
So we won't be going to the overtime.
No. He does have a 99 coin flip rating in Madden, I believe.
Well, that's like a Seahawks. I think Seahawks really train up their backup quarterbacks in that, because Tavares Jackson was legendary.
Yes.
At coin flips. And now, so it's just it's a tradition.
It is a tradition. Ross, over under 40.5 yards for DK Metcalf. He is 5 yards away from surpassing Steve Largent's single season receiving yards for the Seahawks.
God, that's amazing that record's still there 30 years into the passing era.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, over.
Yeah, over.
I'm gonna shed a little tear for Steve.
I'm gonna say he's gonna get Largent's record, but he's only gonna get like 30 yards because they're just not gonna play him. He's gonna have a grab here or there, but they're gonna shut him down, keep him ready for the playoffs.
I don't know, man. They'll be aiming for that number 1 seed. It's going to be right there for the taking.
That is true, but
if Carolina can somehow do us a solid.
All right, well, let's talk about these solids. Green Bay, Chicago. Green Bay needs this win to lock up the number 1 seed. Chicago needs this win to get into the playoffs. Who's winning, Ross?
I'm going Chicago. In Green Bay, in the snow.
It's in Chicago. It's in Chicago.
Whatever. In the snow anyway. Whatever.
Yeah, I'm going Chicago on this one too.
You guys are going with your heart. I'm going to go with my head. I think Green Bay this
Chicago's playing great, and Aaron Rodgers is a douchebag.
That is true. You are not incorrect in any fashion, but I think part of Aaron Rodgers' douchiness, he wants to prove everyone wrong, which means that he's going to play his heart out, and he's gonna get a bunch of scores. I see.
He threw an interception last week. He's gonna throw 2 tomorrow. That's gonna give him 7 on the season.
That's a lot for him.
Like Russell lapped him.
Ross, who's gonna win, New Orleans or Carolina? It's in Carolina, and they don't have any running backs in Carolina.
Do I have to say?
You don't have to say. You could just say it ends in a tie.
You know what? I'm gonna look like a genius. I'm gonna say Carolina 31-28 last second field goal because they've got a good kicker, and it's gonna be because Drew Brees just has one of those games he has every once in a while. He throws like 3 picks,
and also they have a Pro Bowl punter.
Yeah,
that's the rookie that eked out Michael Dixon.
That's bogus.
Zeb, who's winning this game? The Saints or the Panthers?
The Carolina Fighting Panthers.
Man, you guys are so optimistic. I love it.
And I want that 1 seed.
I want that 1 seed too, but
can you imagine wild card weekend if we don't have any stress and get to watch 6 games?
Ooh.
If we have a bye, we're still doing a podcast.
Oh, of course. Have to. I gotta go against you guys. New Orleans is gonna win this game, unfortunately. And the last prediction, Arizona versus the Rams. It is in LA. Both teams need this game to make it in the playoffs. Unless Chicago loses, then both teams will backdoor as the 6 and 7 seeds, respectively.
They're both playing imaginary quarterbacks, like names like the name you just make up when the cops pull you over.
John Wolford? Are you trying to say that that's not a real quarterback name?
Jeff Wilson.
John Wolford. I mean, like it just sounds like a name that like Tony would use when he gets pulled over by the cops in New Orleans.
Tony getting busted.
I mean, it wouldn't work for you, Sammy, obviously, but whatever.
That's okay. I'd say my name was David Chang.
Exactly. Who's the other guy? Who are the other team starting? Who? what's his name?
Kyler Murray practiced today, so everyone's saying that he looks like he's good to go, even though their coach won't officially say who's starting.
Okay, so Arizona wins then.
Okay.
Yeah, Cardinals are going to win.
I think that the Cardinals obviously have the better chance to win because they have a better quarterback. I do think that Sean McVay will have a better chance to win this game because what he's going to do is he's not going to give his quarterback anything to do. He's going to try and just play action all over the place and hope that his defense can get to Kyler Murray. I think the Rams will eke this out and they will get to 10-6.
If the Rams win and they win with that make-believe dude who kind of looks like a Fisher-Price man, so we'll like then you as a Rams fan will be even more mad they gave all that money to Goff.
I think you have to be mad that they gave money to Goff like a year ago.
Right. But then when it's like the playoffs on the line and he's not available and you go to the other guy and you still win because it's and it's because like you said, Sean McVay's genius at whatever, blah blah blah. Then you're just like, so even does it just double up the rage?
Yeah, I mean, if the Seahawks were saddled with that crazy of a contract, I would be livid.
I mean, for that kind of guy,
yeah, for a guy that you don't even love, yeah, of course. How could you not be upset if?
Well, I don't want to get into emotions. Maybe they love Goff. He's just not good.
No, their fans do not love Goff.
No.
You know, my favorite pastime is to go troll other websites talking about the teams we just beat. I can assure you, there is no love for Jared Goff on any Rams place that I've seen right now.
I believe that, but all right. So anyway, Arizona or Rams, it's going to be an interesting weekend.
Zeb, do you have final thoughts on the predictions?
I don't know. I don't know. You're talking about Cardinals and Rams still?
No, just in general. Any wild card predictions you want to throw out there?
Dude, I want that 1 seed. I want it.
All right.
I'm gonna will the universe to or whatever you say to make that happen.
If we do if the Seahawks get a 1 seed and we get a bye, we will make a special event of the next podcast. We'll find something fun to do. Maybe we'll do a giveaway. We'll find something to do.
What, cakewalk?
Something. Walk of shame. Eat crow live. We'll figure something out. If Seattle gets a 1 seed, we will do something fun.
I'm in. Let's do it.
All right, sounds good. Gentlemen, that is our podcast for the day. Now is some time for some shout-outs. We can recycle some timeout shout-outs if you like, but shout-outs.
Shout out to you guys for reminding me there was a podcast today while I was outside. Shout out to Tony for being there. Shout out to my fantasy football mates who congratulated me even though I took first place again this year. Yeah. Little humble bragging there. Just bragging.
I want to say real quickly, I believe both of you are fantasy championships, and I'm very jealous because I did not win my fantasy league this year, so that officially makes you both jerks.
Well, hey, there's always next year.
Always next year. Zeb, any shout-outs today?
Yeah, shout out to Chris Clemens and Raheem Brock. 12s, you got to know your history, okay?
Know your history. Shout out to Santa Claus. Thank you for delivering all the wonderful gifts. Shout out to the two gentlemen, Mr. Ross and Mr. Zeb. Wishing you guys a happy New Year's. Shout out to Tony and to Birdfinger for checking us out on the Twitch chat. We are the Hawkscast Podcast. Check us out on Twitter at Seahawks.
I've got one more.
Oh no! Interruption.
Sorry. Shout out to whoever in the NFL office put up, suggested and implemented the COVID-19 policy stuff, because there were some hiccups, some bumps, and scary moments along the way. But we're going to get to do a 16-game season, man. Remember, back in August and September, we weren't very optimistic about it.
Shout out to the NFL.
Here we are.
Check us out on Twitter, Seahawks Podcast, Seahawks Forum, Hawkscast.com. We're the Hawkscast Podcast. We wish you a Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.